What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host as always. My name is Jimmy, and as we start off every show, that's with gratitude. Shout out to all the members from the MDC Strategy, our membership group. Shout out to all the students from By the Hood University and all of the youth from the By the Hood Ownership Camp. I got my partner in crowd with me, Core. Core, what's good?
Man, every day above ground's a good day, so I ain't gonna complain about being alive.
Absolutely. And for those who are listening or watching for the first time, this is the By the Hood podcast. You know, we come on with some short shows on Wednesdays, just talking about what we see in the world of finance and Black wealth, and try to have a holistic approach to Black wealth. So it's not just specifically about strategies or plays. That's not the culture that we try to foster or talk about here. We like to have deeper conversations as it pertains to wealth and Black wealth specifically. This is going to be a fun episode, probably a short one, Core, but it'll be interesting because you sent me a video the other day, just random. We send each other videos and stuff on the course of the day, and I was like, man, that's so powerful. We definitely got to talk about that. That could be part of the podcast. So if you're watching, I'm going to share this video. If you are listening, you should be able to hear this video. And this is from an interview. Well, I should say, I'm not sure if it was a panel or interview, but Venus Williams from the Williams sisters, the legendary Venus Williams, because her sister is so great. I often believe sometimes that people forget just how good she was.
she won like 20 Grand Slam titles.
Yeah, she
singles and doubles, and she's like she gets overshadowed by a family member.
I know it's crazy, right? But she's also her in doubles. She was godlike. So I think that she gets forgotten a lot of times, but here she is talking on the stage, and we got this video from the page. I want to make sure I shout out all the content creators. It's called VS Gent.
That when you have
all right, let me slow it down. Slow it down. I just dissed you. All right, let me show the video. But it's from the page VS Gent. They have a lot of good clips and things. But this is Venus Williams talking about the idea of discipline. And I think it's a powerful clip, and we can talk about it afterwards. But let me play what Venus said, and shout out to the legendary, godlike Venus Williams.
I honestly believe discipline is freedom.
I want to hear about that.
When you have discipline, you get what you want. When you don't have discipline, you do not get any of what you want. So you're free to live your dream. You're free to do the things that you love. And then you start to come to love the discipline. And then when you don't have the discipline, that's when the anxiety sets in because you're not paying the price. And if you don't pay the price, you get nothing. So you got to pay the price, and then you have to have discipline, and then the world is open to you.
Man, so that is what prompted this conversation.
Like 30 seconds, like
yeah. She 3-0 body bag that, and what's interesting about that about what she said is that works on so many parts of your life, right? When you sent that to me, I was thinking about it in relation to, we talk about wealth, saving, investing, but I start thinking about my personal life, right? Just sharing my personal journey as I do with our audience often. I've been so disciplined with investing and saving. Like I literally, it's almost like the Jay-Z line, right? When Jay-Z says, I'm still spending money from 88. I still literally got investments and things that cash flow from 98, like all jokes aside, really. But there's other parts of my life where I haven't had the same discipline. And as I hear her say that, right, I've been something I've been working on and thinking about just in general. I just recently read a book. It's called Discipline is Destiny. Another one of them Ryan Holiday books. I told you, man, because of political reasons, I hate the fact that I like this dude's writing so much. But, it is what it is, man. Got to keep it 1,000. So here's a book called Discipline is Destiny. And it talks about the idea of discipline being a superpower. And it's something that I'm personally working on as it pertains to my health. I'm trying to lose weight and get health because as we talk about Black wealth, it's bigger than just money. I feel like I have one part mastered, but I haven't been able to master the other part. So I'm actually spending money, hiring nutritionists, trainers, and things like that to try to kind of invest in the other side of it, right? So when I hear her say that, that's how it resonated with me. Like, man, working on your discipline is something that all of us should be doing, whatever it may be, maybe reading, it may be spending time with family, whatever it may be, but it's definitely a cheat code and it does allow you to have what you want. So that's how that resonated with me. When you first saw it, what thoughts came across your mind or what did you think about when you saw her with that statement?
Every child needs to hear that. Every adult needs to hear that, but every single child needs to hear that because it puts it all in perspective. The way to get what you want is to do the things that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be disciplined enough to do the things that you need to do so that you can do the things that you want to do. And it's a message that I give often as a teacher. But to hear someone of her stature say something that I've been saying for years to students, she said it so much more succinctly. Like, she just body bagged that in like 35 seconds. Like, it was just,
Yeah, and to me, that's the genius of it, right? So sometimes people like try to relay messages, and they get in a long diatribe. I'm good for that, like going through a long story. But I think it's genius when you're able to get a point across, like boom, like just take the part.
like,
Let me ask you this question though, right? Because I think that if you're willing to share, if anything, where do you think that you need to work on your discipline with, right? Because I think that they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. I kind of disagree. I disagree with that statement. Yeah, I disagree with that too. But I know there are certain parts of life that some of us do a better job of. Another part, like I just shared a personal struggle. What do you think is something that you like discipline with, and something you like to work on?
It's two things. One, I'm violently opposed to anything that's not Black. So I need to be more disciplined in buying things that are Black. And not violently opposed as far as like physical violence, but like I believe that Black is where we it's the epicenter.
So what I hear you saying is you want to spend more money with Black businesses, but you have to be more.
I have to be more disciplined because what happens is I let convenience take over sometimes, and not disciplined enough to go find the Black version.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, like you were saying, is health wise, right? Dietary wise, I'm actually very good with my diet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the exercise part, right? Because I get bogged down that a lot of the stuff that I do is non-physical, computer based, sitting with, what I mean, computer screen, a TV screen, a phone screen. And I got to get better about moving in between doing those things.
Yeah, that's something that both of us struggle with. So it's funny because, like I said, I hired nutritionists, all these. I'm trying to work on becoming more disciplined and having a conversation. It's just interesting how there's a science to everything, but the idea of food science and her sharing like a lot of knowledge with me, it makes me also realize just how many people in our communities don't have that information, right? So I was, raised in a working class family, went to private school, went to one of the best high schools in the country. And some of the things I'm learning now about like food science was never shared with me. It just wasn't shared in the house, wasn't shared at school. You know what I mean? I have multiple college degrees. It wasn't shared in college. So I'm sitting there like, what about people who don't have the privilege that I had? They don't have this information either. So it's just interesting as you work through life and you learn more, the more you realize that you don't know anything.
Yeah, man. Like, especially somebody who's very good at their job, they'll quickly make you realize how little you know about something.
Yeah.
If you ever been around somebody who's an actual expert at something, like it will reinforce it.
Another thing that I've learned through my life is that sometimes when people are specialists at one thing, right, so that makes them highly skilled, which makes them highly paid a lot of times, right? But they're so laser focused on the one thing that they lack in other things, right? So I've talked to people who are surgeons, and we're talking about finance, like my wheelhouse, and they are absolutely clueless. And these are people that do surgery for a living. Like, you cut people open and operate on them, but you don't know the basics of money. And that's always interesting to me,
man.
Right?
Yeah, that's always a thing with me, right? Because I'm as a teacher, I see that every single day. Like, people who are very, very good at what they do. Like, teachers are amazing.
No, they are.
Right? Like, I'll see some teachers, I'm like, damn, like I'm good with that right there. I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, and but then like you have a basic conversation with them and they can't count to 10. Like, I know some art teachers that can't count to 10. You know what I mean? Like,
it reminds me of and it's funny, I was just sharing the same story with some of my colleagues in data science, but I was watching an interview with John Gruden. Remember John Gruden, who used to be the Eagles offensive coordinator? He went on to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well as the Raiders back in Oakland. And he won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. But they were going to do an interview with him, and he was saying how football is where his genius shines. He spent his entire life studying football. So when you hear him talk about X's and O's, it's almost like hearing a surgeon talk about surgery, right?
Yeah.
And what he said in the interview, which was interesting, he said, I'm probably terrible at everything else in life. I'm a terrible husband. I'm a terrible father. He said, I don't know how to handle money. He said, but football, I know football because I dedicated my life and was disciplined enough to dedicate my life to studying football, which allowed him to achieve things at the highest level that only so many coaches have ever won a Super Bowl, right?
And only so many people have coached at a pro level.
That's true too, right? So he's at the highest of the highest levels in terms of NFL coaches. But hearing him say that was interesting. It's like, man, to be that great, he had to sacrifice a lot.
So many things.
But that's the whole idea of discipline, right? So sometimes that's the way it works as well. But so shout out to Phoenix. I thought this was an interesting, succinct way to put it. And it's almost like a superpower, as the book Discipline is Destiny. I'll put a link to the book in the description as well. But it's an excellent book talking about discipline.
She went crazy. Play that on the outro, dog. Like,
I'm gonna definitely play that. I'm gonna play that again, before we get out of here, because
she went nuts. And like, dang, like.
But I do want to ask our audience, whether you're listening to this or whether you are watching the video, how are you in terms of discipline? What are you disciplined with? What is something that you possibly struggle with? I mean, no one's perfect. What are some of the things that you possibly struggle with as it pertains to discipline? And are you doing anything about it? Are you working on yourself, trying to become more disciplined? Right.
The crazy part is my discipline comes in knowing my limitations, right? Like there's
self-awareness.
Yeah, like if there's something I'm very, very good at, I don't try to like downplay or say I can't do it or none of that. But if it's something I don't know how to do, I just like, I don't know how to do that. And I get way more help that way than most people. Like I get a lot of help that I don't even ask for sometimes because I say I don't know.
Some of the smartest people I've met in my life, that's one of their superpowers, right? Is self-awareness and understanding that you don't have to know everything. There's nothing worse than when you're talking to someone and they clearly don't know what they're talking about, but you also pick up the fact that they don't want to say they don't know, and they just start talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the conversation. That is like one of the most egregious things. But people do it every day.
If I don't know, I'll be like, man, I have no clue. Like I punt a lot. Like I'm like, I'm like an old football team.
This leads to a deeper conversation because culturally speaking, we're not taught to do that, right? How many times have you had a kid in your class, right, where they act up, right? And the reason they act up is because they're really afraid to look like they don't know anything.
Every single student in every class that I've ever had.
Right?
I'm in special education, so this is something that I come across.
Yeah, but I've had a lot of teachers tell me this
150 times a day. Like every single student, every single class that I've ever had. Like that is something that I come across.
So
go ahead.
When you come from where we come from, we're not taught to ask questions a lot of times. We're taught that, and I have so many friends that are teachers, and all you guys are blessings, by the way. And what they tell me is a lot of behavioral issues start from the person maybe not knowing the information and not knowing how to ask for help. So they rather just I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna punch somebody.
Hold you on.
You asked me this. I don't want to read. Instead of saying I need help with reading, I'm just gonna punch somebody or say something something out of line. I'm gonna change the whole.
I'm gonna say something you gotta respond to.
Yeah. So I think that that's something that should be talked about too. Like just from a culture standpoint, it's okay not to know.
It is. but kids are also cruel. Like, because if you got 30 kids in the class, well, I've never had 30 kids in the class because I teach special education.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you got 15 kids in the class,
Mm-hmm.
and I got 15 kids in the class, and 13 of them pick it up. Those other 2 is in trouble because those other 13, they're gonna let them know, like, yo, dog, like, how you not picking this up? Like,
Yeah.
And those 2 students are gonna go crazy. Like, I know immediately that I need to pull those 2 students to the side and have a smaller group, a small group intervention immediately.
Yeah.
Because I know those other students is about to get reckless. You know what I mean? Because they finally got something, they want to show the world that they know. And so I don't want to dim their light. I just don't want those other 2 students.
I understand. And that's where the art and science of, that's why I said what teachers do is part art, part science. That's where all that stuff meets.
Oh,
and you got
instantaneous small group. If I see a couple of students that don't know something and everybody else got it, those students get an instantaneous small group help.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I don't need those other students going crazy in my classroom. You know what I mean? Like, making it difficult for them, to learn. So that's for me, because of the expertise and because I've seen it so many times, I can recognize it instantaneously, like immediately, instantaneously. And it makes it, easier for me. Now, somebody without my experience, the difficulty level on that is going to be, Goku level, whatever the highest level is, whatever level, that's going to be crazy because you had coming in with no previous knowledge, no skills, no nothing. That's going to be a mess.
Yeah. So but that's why I say that, from a cultural standpoint, we need to do a better job of making it okay.
That's where I learned it from. I learned to ask questions because I see so many people who don't. Like, I see so many people who just refuse to say, I don't know. Listen, if I'm doing something, I don't know is my go-to.
Yeah.
If I'm doing something and I really don't know, like if I Google it, if I play with it and I can't do it myself, I'm calling somebody. I'm gonna call somebody and say, I don't know how to do this. Walk me through this so I can understand it, so I can do it myself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need you to do it for me. I need you to walk me through it so I can do it, so that I don't have to keep calling you. You know what I mean? Like, dependency that way is crazy to me too.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Especially being a black man, right? I know that, at least I can speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody, but when we're raised a certain way, like, to show no weakness, to all these things that are kind of what we're told.
I'm kind of glad that missed me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it didn't miss me. so I grew up in a neighborhood with like OG old heads, like that was it wasn't
my neighborhood was like that, but my household.
But it wasn't necessarily that they said you have to be this way, although that some of that happened too. It's more of how they carry themselves, right?
Yeah.
In my household neighborhood, I didn't know black men to show vulnerability in a way that is probably proper. Man. Now that I have more information, but again, that's the benefit of me having more information and being able,
My uncles were my first teachers, so they made me ask. So like it was kind of, I kind of got the opposite, like, you know what I mean, like.
But what I'm talking about is the idea of not necessarily asking, just the idea of what black masculinity.
Being vulnerable enough to ask, right?
Yes.
That's the thing that they taught me. Like, look, if you don't know, you have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't teach you if you don't tell us. You know what I mean? Like, that was their whole thing. Like, so if you want to be like, I wanted to be able to play chess like they did. Like, my uncles played chess and they were boxing and playing. Like, my first sport was boxing.
Mm-hmm.
I played football, basketball. My first sport was boxing. I wanted to learn the science of boxing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so when I was younger, for them to teach me those things, I had to ask a lot of questions to get where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for me, it's second nature, but I understand for the vast majority of black people, not even black people, just people.
No, it's people in general, but I can only speak to
the black experience.
Yeah, and what I understand is from having family, cousins, friends, or whatever, it's like that idea of being vulnerable enough to ask is not nothing that was like talked about or fostered, especially when you talk about not learning from just what people tell you to do, right? Because I've had uncles and aunts, you got to ask questions, but that's not what you're showing me. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to tell me
anybody to do nothing.
Yeah, but it's like, what are you showing me? Are you showing me that you're vulnerable enough to ask questions? Like, I've been in a car with like, men in my family, right? Where they clearly don't know where they're going and they ain't gonna ask nobody. We're gonna sit in the whip and we're gonna ride for another hour till they figure it out because they not asking for more. Like, I'm just keeping it a bean with you, bro. And I know I'm not the only one with that experience. So if anybody with that experience, like, let me know.
No, I know that.
True story, bro.
I listen, man.
Well, a lot of times as adults, we don't realize it's not just what we tell people. Because, and I got nephews, and I talk to them all the time, but I often sit back and think, what am I showing them, right? Because a lot of times we don't think about that. What are we showing them through our actions? Because that's what they're paying attention to. Anyway, man, I don't want to belabor the point, man. Great conversation as always, brother. Thank you for sharing that video with me. That's definitely going on this the Save Reel. Shout out to Venus for saying something that we think, but she put it so succinctly and allowed us to have this conversation. And also thank you for sharing what you're trying to work on your discipline with, because we're all a work in progress. So
for sure.
Yeah, I would appreciate our audience if you can, man, to share some stuff that you maybe working on your discipline with, something you may struggle with. And what is your idea of discipline overall? Shout out to our sister Nairobi. She was selling t-shirts at one point, and the t-shirt said discipline is greater than motivation. And that was one of her taglines. And I was like, damn, that's hard, right? Because everybody's motivated, but that thing's burned out. But your discipline?
Never.
Your discipline, it is what it is, man. Anyway, man, any last words we got here, bro?
Just, be good to each other. That's
absolutely it. If anybody watching this, right away, this drops today, Wednesday, September 20th. This weekend, on Saturday, I'll be at Howard University at the Black Blockchain Summit, spitting truth to power, talking about some of my favorite things, Bitcoin, real estate, and Black wealth. So if you're in DC area, DMV area, pull up to Howard University. I will be in the building. Other than that, man, we appreciate all the support with everything that we do. Love y'all. Make sure you leave us some feedback, some comments. But as we always say, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
I honestly believe discipline is freedom.
I want to hear about that.
When you have discipline, you get what you want. When you don't have discipline, you do not get any of what you want. So you're free to live your dream. You're free to do the things that you love. And then you start to come to love the discipline. And then when you don't have the discipline, that's when the anxiety sets in, because you're not paying the price. And if you don't pay the price, you get nothing. So you got to pay the price, and then you have to have discipline, and then the world is open to you.